Let's do some restorative movement where we're focusing on how we feel in the moment and moving in a comfortable range that works for our body. So I'm going to be using a stationary chair. You could always use a dowel, which is kind of like a long cane, or a stick. You could use a wall. You could use anything that helps you stand up, or you don't have to use that at all. But it's up to you. I'm going to be using a chair, so do what works for you. If you use a chair, I recommend a stationary chair, not one with wheels. So my name is Rachel from Rad Pilates, and let's get started with some standing balance. So from here, I'm going to be swaying a little bit back to my heels, but my knees are a little bit bent. I'm a little bit flexed already at my hips, knees, and ankles, and then I'm going to go forward on my toes a little bit. Show you a side view. So I'm going back and forth. Go in a range that works for you. I have a really squishy mat. This might feel a little bit more fun on the ground or the floor instead of this thick mat, but do what works for you. Reminder, you can change your environment to fit your needs, and I want you to do that throughout your practice. So as you're swaying back and forth, let's find that sort of in-between place where you feel stable and you can ground in all corners of your feet. And from here, I'm going to press down to my left leg a little bit more and then lift my right any amount. I could keep my toes down and just have my heels up, or lift. Do what works for you. Notice how much you go side to side. If you'd like to slow that down, that's fine. Having a sway is normal. It's a normal human thing to redistribute our balance and our body to the other side as we're rebalancing, playing around with that. We don't have to move stiff and make no motion. If you want to do that, do that. If not, allow your body to move in the ways that it wants to, and allowing yourself to build that proprioception and figure out where you're at in the moment, and building that relationship with yourself as you move. From here, I'm going to take my right leg, bring it over the left, and then I'm going to reach my right arm and bring it up and over. So I'm getting this nice side bend, and then I'm going to lift back up and then go back over, maybe 2 to 3 times. Remember, how many reps we do is arbitrary, and it's up to us to decide how much or how little we would like to do in the moment. I'm gonna bring my chair over to the other side. Left leg over right, left arm up in the air over to the other side. Left arm comes back down. And again, inhale, exhale, lifting that left arm, reaching up and over to the other side, coming back into that upright, and then one more time. After you're standing back upright, I'm gonna turn my chair around so I have this place that I'm gonna end up at. I'm gonna roll down to the top of my chair. You're more than welcome to go all the way to the floor or a different surface. So I like to first have my hip hinge, have a little bit of bent knee, bent ankle, bent hips, reaching my arms up in the air, rounding over, letting my head drop, letting my chin tuck, coming down until my hands reach the chair, the floor, really letting my head and neck hang for a moment. I'm gonna let my head go side to side, like I'm saying no or yes, letting my head just relax and hang down for a moment. I'm gonna start unwinding my hips and pressing my butt back and lifting up the front of my chest and lifting up my gaze. My head is the last to arrive. Then from here, I'm gonna round my sacrum, low back, mid back, round through my shoulders, drop my head. And again, unwinding through my hips first, working my way up my spine, head. And then again, rounding, coming into your flex spine, and then extending, and the gaze is lifted. This is an extended spine. And then rounding again, moving between those cat-cow shapes. From here, I want you to go back into that all fours, lifted, extended spine for a moment. Take a couple inhales, expanding the belly. Exhale all that air. Again, Inhale, expand, exhale all that air. Last one, big inhale, expand, and then exhale all that air. Lower the head, round. Redistribute weight back onto the feet. Start stacking up. Hands go to the side, head is over the body. Check in with this. We have our feet with our hips over our feet, our rib cage over our hips, our head over our rib cage. Some form of this, finding out what works for us. From here, we're gonna hip hinge back. So I want you to think about your butt going back, and then your butt coming back over your feet, and your rib cage coming back over that. Butt is going back, and then coming back forward. And again, butt goes back, coming back forward. Last one, butt goes back, lifting back up. From here, we're going to bend at the hips, knees, and ankles until our hands reach about midway or to the chair if we're using one. And from here, let's go into some arm lifts. So we're gonna lift the arm up and over, rounding it. I'm actually gonna bring my gaze with my hand and look back. So I'm getting a little bit of that thoracic rotation. Arm comes down, I'm gonna stay on that same side for 3. Reach, over and back. And again, I'm bringing my gaze with that. And then I'm gonna go the opposite direction for 3, going back, bringing my gaze with that hand. And then last one, and then other side. So remember, at any point, if you feel like taking a break, do that. It's about you working with yourself where you're at and you focusing on your own needs, not just following along with a teacher. So take a break at any moment. I'm gonna lift my other arm and bring my gaze with that. I look back, bringing my arm back forward. 2 more, reaching back, up and over and back. And then we're gonna sweep and go the other way, reaching back, up and over and forward. My gaze is still with that. And then my last one, reaching back down. From here, I'm gonna stand up, upright. Taking another moment, I'm gonna bend back down into that same shape. I'm gonna play around with my feet. I'm walking them back a little bit. I'm gonna roll my heels up, and I'm gonna come onto my toes and sort of let my knees hang for a moment. And I'm gonna notice what that adds, what kind of work or challenge or how that feels. And then I'm gonna bring my heels back down and let my legs sort of extend. And then again, bending my knees, bringing my heels up, letting my knees sort of hang. It's like a knee hover. And then again, lifting back up. Let's do one more. We're in that hover. If you'd like to add to it, you can go into alternating, lifting a foot in that hover, one at a time. You could always add an opposite arm, like the left arm, right leg, and then right arm, left leg, and alternating between those a few times, seeing how that feels in the moment. Maybe just doing the arms or just doing the legs feels better. Focus on what feels better to you and do what works for you. That's gonna be better in the long run. And then you can find your preferences, and your preferences really help with some of this stuff. Because when you do what you enjoy, you keep doing it. And from here, we're gonna come back down one more time. Let's roll down this time. We're gonna roll down, bring your hands either to the floor or to the chair, whatever works for you. Let's walk one leg out, one leg is in, reaching up, rounding. Maybe you stretch through both legs and that both heels are down. And then rounding back forward, lifting up that chest. And then again, pressing back, getting the heels down for a moment. Coming back forward, we're gonna bring the left leg forward, right leg back. Heel is lifted when we're in this upright, lungy moment. And then we press back, the heel's down. And then again, lift. When we're back, the heel's down. Last one. And then we're coming back forward with both feet. Decide if you'd like to bring both feet back and coming into a plank-ish. We can always lower down to the forearms if this feels better. We can always lift back up into lengthened arms. Decide what works for you. If you want to add to it, lift one back leg, pointing that foot, bring it back down. Other side, lift that foot, point. and alternate between those. If you'd still like to add on to it more, when you have your right leg up, you could bring your left hand up and do opposite arms. Left hand, right hand back down, left foot, right hand up, and alternating between those. Remember, everything is optional. You don't have to do it. Maybe lifting just the arm or just the leg is more than enough. Pressing the hips back for a moment. I'm in this forward fold type shape. Inhale, exhale. If you'd like to, you could bring the right hand down, reaching it over to the left and looking underneath the armpit. Unwind, bring that hand up, go to the other side, looking underneath. Arms come forward. Decide if you'd like to go back into a plank. Take a moment, maybe that plank turns into an extension and a swan, and then we round and come all the way back up. From here, I'm going to bring my chair into a face forward position, and I'm going to sit down. Actually, I might sit back a little bit further, and I'm going to take a couple rounds of breath. As I'm breathing and checking in with myself, I'm going to roll my shoulders up and back, and then again, inhaling, lift, rolling them up and back, and again, lifting them up, rolling them back. From here, I'm gonna decide if I wanna keep doing my shoulders, if I wanna do my entire arms, bring them back. I like to flip my palms out and then come back down. Sweeping forward, the palms are facing in, lifting up, they go out, come back down. Let's do 2 more. Reaching out and out, sweeping back and going back the same way. And then from here, lifting the arms up, I'm gonna bring my right arm forward and down, and my left arm's gonna go back, and I'm gonna look back at it. I'm letting my arms come all the way back down. I'm lifting them back up to center. I'm coming back forward. I'm gonna rotate, looking at that arm facing back. My left arm's forward, my right arm's back. Letting my arms come all the way down, reaching them back up. I like to bring my gaze up to that, and then I'm gonna go back in that same pattern. Lifting up, and over, and up, and over, getting a little bit of rotation and some arm movement. Reaching back up. Arms are gonna bend down into this goalpost or cactus shape, and then from here, I'm bending my palms forward and down, going into a range that works for me, and then lifting back up and down, up and down, maybe going for 2 more, and then last one. Let your arms come all the way down to the side. Maybe take a couple inhales and exhales. From here, let's bring our right arm across our body. Left arm reaches up and over. Arm comes back down, reaches across. Lift that up and over. And then again, we're gonna repeat that same thing 1 more time on each. And then coming back upright. You can have your arms stretched out long, hands behind the head, or arms in front of you. Decide what works for you. We're gonna rotate over to our right, and then come back through center. Inhale, exhale, over to the left, back through center. I want you to continue with that, maybe 3 or 4 times on each. Moving back and forth, hips are staying forward. This is coming from our thoracic, our mid part of our spine, rib cage, rotating. From here, bring your arms back in front of us. We're gonna rotate over to the right. Lift your arms up, lift your gaze up, come through center, over to the other side. Arms come down, back to the start position. We're gonna go back the opposite way. So we're gonna start going left, lifting up and over, bring the gaze, bring the chest, and then come over to the other side, back forward. Let's do 2 more on each. Over to the right, lift up and over to the other side, back in front of you. Over to the other side, lift up and over. Come back to that start position, letting the arms relax, taking a breath here. Let's sweep our arms back up, coming down into our rounded roll down forward, deciding how far we'd like to come. I'm then going to lift up for a moment and then round back down and come back up. And again, rolling back down. Once I'm here, I'm actually gonna go over to my right side, lifting up my left arm a little bit. And I'm pressing this right arm into this right leg. Arm's gonna come back down. I'm gonna go to the other side. Left arm sort of pushes into that left leg while the right arm lifts up. You can decide to go back and forth between that a few times or come back up. Whew. From here, with our legs in front of us, I like to be a little bit forward. If I'm back far, this is a little bit harder for me to do, but maybe for you, being further back, it's more accessible. So just because I cue something slightly different might actually work better for you. So explore within any sort of movement. So I'm moving myself a little bit forward and have my bum like halfway forward. And then I'm gonna start lifting, alternating heels. Right heel lifts, as right heel lowers, left heel lifts. So I'm alternating between those heel lifts. I can then decide if I'd like to actually lift the whole foot. So I'm back on my right, I'm gonna lift it up, lower it down, other side. Deciding if this works for me and if I'd like to continue lifting legs. And then from here, I could even slow it down and see what it's like to hold it up. I could even press on this leg to press it down and kind of push that knee up and see what this moment is like of opposition, and then switch to the other side. Just see what this moment of opposition is like. Going back and forth a few times between them. And then if you'd like to, remember, everything is optional. We can try to lift both at once and lower, lift both at once. So I need to go a little bit further back behind my sits bones in order to lift, but I don't want to be super far back. So see what that range is to lift if you would like to, and if it feels good. So do you like it and does it feel good? Those are really good things to ask yourself when you're doing movement. And then maybe one more and coming back up. I'm gonna bring my left leg up and over into more of this piriformis stretch while sitting. The thing is, I like to be here and I like to focus on getting myself in a neutral-ish position and really pressing my sits bones back and reaching, not in a rounded over, but lifting up forward in this high diagonal out from my torso, out of my pelvis. That was a lot. So pretty much I like to play with my torso and my low back to feel where I actually get a piriformis stretch, a stretch in the back of my hip, low hip butt area in the back. And I take a moment to feel around and see what that's like for me. Sometimes it's me pressing my knee down, flexing this foot, and then being in more of a neutral upright than rounding over. But maybe rounding over feels better for you. The point is, I want you to explore in this shape and figure out what feels good to you in the moment. And then other side. Because you could be in some alignment that someone throws out, and alignment isn't universal. So it might not work for you and it might actually bug you. But it's nice to try different shapes and then move from there, because even slight changes can have big impacts. So I'm doing the same thing on this side. I'm flexing and I'm getting this lean. I'm not rounding. I'm really pressing my sits bones back and getting a lot of feedback on this leg. And then I'm gonna bring that back down. From here, let's let our chin and our head come forward and then lift up, and then lifting all the way up and bringing your gaze up and then lowering down. Couple more, and I'm staying really upright when I'm here so that I can get a stretch to the front of my neck and the back of my neck. And then from here, I'm going to lower over, tilting my head on this diagonal. And I feel a little bit of a stretch. I'm not gonna add to it. And then I'm lifting up, other side, and then up. I want you to go back and forth, but use your breath. Turn to the side, inhale, exhale, lift up, go to the other side, big inhale, exhale. Just notice what changes there are. How does your neck feel as you move? And then if you'd like to, add full circles to that. So we'll go to one side, rolling through one side all the way, and continuing with that. Maybe we want to go for 2 or 3 and then go the other way. For me, one way tracks really nicely and the other way has a little bit of congestion, is what I'll call it. And I just notice how that feels when I revisit that move. And then from here, we're gonna work on standing up. So we're gonna press. So I'm gonna put a little bit of my energy forward, press down in all four corners of my feet, and stand up, reaching through my spine, and then coming down and letting my seat guide me. You can always bring your hands down, and then lifting back up, and then lowering down. If you'd like to add to it, you could bring one foot with the toes down, heel lifted. So the toes are down on this one, but the heel is lifted. And then coming up and lowering down, and then you could switch. Toes down, heels lifted on the right foot, lowering down. And then if you'd like to add on to that, you could lift the leg up and then come up. Single leg, lower down, single leg. Other side, lift up, ooh, single leg, and then lower down. We can tell which side of mine has a little bit more strength. I also recommend not using a super squishy mat. This is adding to the challenge, and it's actually kind of nice, but I recommend doing it on a more stable surface. And then coming up. You could always lift up the leg and put it down to come back to sitting. Do what works for you. Play around with that, and remember that your movement practice is about how you feel, not the person teaching the class. So every time you're taking a movement class, make it about you. And I hope you have a good day, and I hope to move with you again soon.